Commander Taeyang Kim stood at the entrance of the Grand Council chamber and took a deep breath. He had been here many times before, always asking for something, always being denied. Today would probably be no different. Behind him, his assistant Minho Lee carried a datapad filled with reports and evidence. The young man's hand shook slightly. He had never been inside the chamber before. The doors opened with a sound like thunder. Inside, the 12 species of the Galactic Council sat on their elevated platforms, looking down at the small area where humans were allowed to stand. Taeyang walked forward, his boots clicking on the polished floor. The council members barely looked at him. To them, he was just another human, and humans were nothing special. Councillor Vrektar of the Veloth species lounged on his platform. His body looked like a giant snake with arms, his scales shimmering purple under the lights. He yawned, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Another petition from the humans," he said in a bored voice. "What do you want this time? Better food rations? Newer mining equipment?" Taeyang kept his face calm. "Counselor, we come to request access to the medical technology known as the Healing Wave device. A plague has spread through our colonies on 3 worlds. 2 million humans are sick. Without treatment, they will die within 6 months." Another counselor, a creature made of floating crystal fragments, made a sound like breaking glass. It was laughing. 2 million. Humans breed so quickly. You will replace them in a year. Minho's face went red with anger, but Taeyang put a hand on his shoulder. "Stay calm," the gesture said. This was how it always went. The council treated human lives like they meant nothing. "The technology exists," Taeyang continued. "You use it on your own people. We are only asking for the same treatment. We are members of this council, after all." Vrektar leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "Members?" he said slowly. "Is that what you think you are? Let me explain your position, Commander. Humans are workers. You mine our asteroids. You build our stations. You do the jobs that our people find beneath them. You are useful, yes, but you are not equals. The technology you request costs resources. Why should we waste resources on replacing humans when humans replace themselves?" The other council members made sounds of agreement. Taeyang felt something cold settle in his chest, but his face remained still. He had learned long ago not to show emotion here. "I understand," he said quietly. "Thank you for your time, counselors." He turned to leave, but Minho suddenly stepped forward. "Wait!" the young man shouted. "There's something else you need to know." Taeyang grabbed for him, but Minho was already activating his datapad. Images appeared in the air above them. They showed humans in cages, humans being injected with strange substances, humans screaming in pain while alien scientists took notes. "These images are from Kepler 442, Minho said, his voice shaking. "From the Veloth research station there. You're not just letting us die. You're killing us on purpose. You're testing your weapons on our people." The chamber went silent. Taeyang felt his heart sink. Minho had just revealed something that was supposed to stay hidden. They had been gathering evidence for months, trying to build a case, trying to do things the right way. Vrektar looked at the images for a long moment. Then he started laughing. It was a horrible sound, like metal scraping on metal. Soon other council members joined in. "Research?" Vrektar said between laughs. "Yes, of course we conduct research. How else do we develop new technologies? We use test subjects just as we always have. This falls within acceptable parameters for servile species. There is nothing wrong here." Minho looked like he had been slapped. "Nothing wrong?"
"These are people."
"They have families. They have children. They are humans," another counselor said, as if that explained everything. "Lower tier classification. The council charter allows such research on species below tier 5. Taeyang stood very still. He could feel something building inside him, something that had been growing for years. Every insult, every denial, every casual cruelty. It was all piling up, reaching a breaking point. Vrektar slithered down from his platform until he was face to face with Taeyang. "I can see you are upset, Commander," he said with mock concern. "Tell me, what will you do about it? Will you file a complaint? Write a strongly worded letter?" He leaned closer, his breath smelling like rotten meat. "Will you bare your teeth and beat your chest like the apes you descended from?" The council chamber filled with more laughter. Taeyang looked into Vrektar's eyes. He thought about the 2 million people dying of plague. He thought about the humans in those cages. He thought about every human child who had been told they were lesser, every worker who had been treated like a machine, every colony that had begged for help and been ignored. He smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You have 6 months, Taeyang said clearly. 6 months to evacuate all your research stations from human space. You will release every human test subject. You will provide the medical technology we requested. You will do all of this, or there will be consequences. The laughter stopped. Brektar stared at him in disbelief. Then slowly the Veloth counselor began laughing again, louder than before. Consequences, he said. What consequences? You have no fleet. You have no weapons. You are barely capable of defending your own planets, let alone threatening us. Do you know how old the Veloth Empire is, human? We were exploring the stars when your ancestors were still living in caves. We have destroyed civilizations that were greater than yours will ever be. Taeyang kept smiling. 6 months, he repeated. We will not ask again. He turned and walked toward the exit. Minho hurried after him, confused and scared. Behind them, the council members laughed and made jokes. They called humans foolish, delusional, amusing. As the doors closed behind them, Minho grabbed Taeyang's arm. Sir, what did you just do? We don't have a fleet. We can't fight them. They'll destroy us! Taeyang looked at his young assistant. And Minho, do you know what humans are really good at? What? Surviving. And planning. And making sure that people who underestimate us regret it. He pulled out his communicator and pressed a button. This is Commander Kim. Authorization code Alpha 77 Omega. Activate Protocol Prometheus. Far away on a dark moon at the edge of the solar system, lights began turning on. Factories that had been disguised as mining operations started humming with power. Ships that looked like cargo vessels opened their hulls to reveal weapons. And deep in the asteroid belt, in a hidden facility that the Council had never found, Admiral Jisoo Choi received the message she had been waiting for all her life. The countdown had begun. The galaxy had crossed humanity's limit. Now it would learn what that meant. Admiral Jisoo Choi stood in the command center of Station Prometheus and smiled. She was 60 years old and had spent 40 of those years preparing for this moment. Around her, hundreds of technicians worked at their stations, activating systems that had been hidden for decades. The station itself was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to the Council's sensors. Status report, she said calmly. A young officer named Kyung-ro looked up from his console. All shipyards are coming online, Admiral. The Council hasn't detected anything yet. They think we're just increasing mining operations. Jisoo nodded. The Council's arrogance was humanity's greatest weapon. They had never bothered to look closely at what humans were doing in their own space. Why would they? Humans were just workers, after all. Simple creatures who followed orders. Except humans had never been simple. And they had certainly never been just following orders. How long until the fleet is ready? Jisoo asked. Kyung checked his screens. 3 weeks for the first battle group. 5 weeks for full deployment. We have 200 warships ready now, with another 500 in various stages of completion. 700 warships. The Council thought humanity had maybe 30 old patrol boats. They were about to get a very unpleasant surprise. On Earth, in a building called the Historical Preservation Society, another woman was also smiling. Her name was Sumin Kang, and she was the head of humanity's secret research division. The building's public face showed museums and libraries. Below ground, hidden behind layers of security, was the most advanced research facility in the galaxy. Sumin walked through a laboratory where scientists were making final adjustments to their greatest achievement. It looked like a large ring glowing with blue energy. This was the quantum displacement drive, a technology that would change everything. Dr. Kang, one of the scientists, called out. We're ready for the first full-scale test. Show me, Sumin said. They activated the drive on a small, unmanned ship. One moment it was there, the next it simply vanished. Sensors showed it had reappeared on the other side of the solar system instantly. No travel time, no energy trail. Just instant movement from one point to another. The Council's wormhole network took hours to travel between systems. This took seconds. And unlike wormholes, it left no signature, no way to track where a ship had gone or where it might appear next. Beautiful, Sumin whispered. Start installing these on Admiral Choi's fleet immediately. Back on the Persistence, Taeyang's ship, Engineer Hana Park was showing Minho something that made the young man's eyes go wide. They stood in what looked like a normal cargo bay, but Hana pressed a button and the wall slid back, revealing rows of weapons and armor. We've been preparing for this since before you were born, Hana explained. Every cargo ship has hidden weapons. Every mining station has defense systems. Every colony has trained soldiers pretending to be farmers. Minho touched one of the weapons with shaking hands. How long? How long have we been planning this? Since the day we joined the council, Hana said. The first human diplomat took one look at how they treated us and sent a message home. One word, prepare. Every generation since then has been getting ready, building slowly, hiding everything, waiting for the day when the council would push too far. She pulled up a holographic display showing the human colonies. What looked like farms and cities suddenly revealed their true nature. Underground bunkers, hidden factories, training facilities disguised as schools. We learned something important, Hana continued. The council thinks they're superior because they have older technology and bigger empires. But old technology becomes outdated, and big empires become slow and lazy. We've been innovating while they've been resting. On the council homeworlds, the leadership was not worried. A week after Taeyang's ultimatum, they held a meeting to discuss the human problem. Most thought it was funny. Should we even bother responding? One counselor asked. Humans making threats is like insects threatening a giant. Rektar was less amused. They were very confident. Too confident. Perhaps we should investigate their military capabilities. What military? Another counselor laughed. We have reports. They have a few dozen ships barely functional. Their weapons are centuries behind ours. There is nothing to investigate. Then perhaps a demonstration is in order, Rektar said. Send the peacekeeping fleet to Earth. Show them what real power looks like. Make them remember their place. The council agreed. They assembled a fleet of 50 warships, more than enough to intimidate any species. These were not their best ships, just old vessels with outdated crews, but they were still far superior to anything humans possessed. Or so they thought. The peacekeeping fleet entered human space 3 weeks after Taeyang's ultimatum. Their commander, a proud warrior named Kethril, sent a message ahead announcing their arrival. Humans of Earth, prepare to receive the council's judgment. Your threats have been noted and dismissed. Surrender now and your punishment will be light. He waited for a response. None came. His sensors showed nothing unusual. No fleet gathering to meet them. No defenses activating. Just silence. Cowards, Kethril muttered. They run and hide like animals. His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, I'm getting strange readings from the asteroid belt. Power signatures that don't match any known mining operations. Investigate, Kethril ordered. 3 scout ships broke formation and headed toward the asteroids. They never reported back. One moment they were there, the next they simply vanished from all sensors. No explosion, no debris, just gone. What happened? Kethril demanded. Before anyone could answer, alarms started screaming throughout the fleet. Ships appeared around them, hundreds of ships materializing out of nowhere like ghosts. They had no energy signatures before they appeared. No warning at all. The human ships were strange-looking, not elegant like council vessels. They looked brutal and efficient, covered in armor and weapons designed for one purpose: war. Admiral Jisoo Choi's face appeared on every screen in the peacekeeping fleet. She looked calm and professional. Council vessels, you are in human space without permission. You have 30 seconds to activate your emergency jump drives and leave. This is your only warning. Kethril laughed. You dare threaten us? We are the Council's peacekeeping fleet. We have never known defeat. 20 seconds, Jisoo said calmly. Attack, Kethril shouted. Destroy them all. The Council ships opened fire, their weapons lighting up space with energy beams and missiles. The human ships simply weren't there anymore. They had jumped away, appearing behind the Council fleet before the weapons could reach them. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The human ships moved in ways that should have been impossible, appearing and disappearing, striking from angles that couldn't be predicted. Their weapons tore through Council shields like paper. In 5 minutes, the entire peacekeeping fleet was disabled. Not destroyed, just disabled. Every ship drifting helplessly, their engines dead, their weapons offline. Jisoo's face appeared again. We could have killed you all. Remember that. Now go back to the Council and tell them something. Tell them that humanity is done asking nicely. Tell them that the 6-month countdown is now 5 months and 3 weeks. Tell them that if they do not evacuate their research stations and release our people, the next fleet we meet will not be disabled. It will be destroyed. The Council ships were allowed to repair their engines and limp home. When they arrived, the Council chamber was in chaos. How had humans developed such technology? Where had the fleet come from? How had they hidden it? Rektar sat very still, watching the recordings of the battle. He saw the human ships moving impossibly fast, appearing and disappearing, fighting with a precision that spoke of years of practice. For the first time in his long life, Rektar felt something unfamiliar. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was fear. 6 months passed. The Council research stations in human space remained open. The test subjects stayed in their cages. The Council had sent diplomats instead of evacuation ships, believing they could negotiate, believing humans were bluffing, believing that their show of force had been some kind of trick. They were wrong. On the first day of the 7th month, Taeyang Kim stood in the command center of the Persistence and gave the order that would change galactic history. All units, this is Commander Kim. Humanity is no longer asking. Humanity is taking, execute Operation Justice. Across the galaxy, human ships appeared simultaneously at 17 locations. These were the Council's major military bases, their supply stations, their command centers. The attacks were perfectly coordinated, striking at the exact same moment despite being light years apart. Captain Daeun Song commanded the carrier Indomitable, leading the attack on a massive Veloth military station. Her ship was 3 times larger than anything the Council had seen before, carrying hundreds of smaller fighters and enough firepower to crack a moon. "Remember what they did to our people," Daeun said to her crew. "Remember the cages. Remember the experiments. Today we make them remember us." The Indomitable dropped out of quantum displacement directly above the station. Before the Veloth could respond, it launched its fighters. These were not like Council fighters that needed pilots. These were AI-controlled swarm units, thousands of small craft working together like a single organism. The station's defenses tried to activate, but they were too slow. Human hackers had infiltrated their systems months ago, waiting for this moment. Defense guns fired at empty space while the swarm tore through the station's hull. It was over in 6 minutes. The station was destroyed, its garrison captured or killed. The Indomitable vanished before any reinforcements could arrive, leaving only wreckage and a message written in light across the debris field. Justice for Kepler 442. At each of the 17 targets, the story was the same. Human forces appeared, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before the Council could respond. They didn't fight fair. They didn't give warnings. They didn't follow the Council's rules of war. Why would they? The Council had never followed rules when dealing with humans. While the military struck bases, another human named Woo Sung-yoon was conducting a different kind of war. He sat in a broadcasting station and uploaded something to every communication network in Council space. It was the footage Minho had shown the Council, but much more complete. The galaxy saw everything. They saw humans being injected with diseases. They saw children crying for their parents. They saw scientists taking notes while their subjects screamed. And perhaps worst of all, they heard the audio recordings of Veloth researchers laughing about their work. "Subject 4721 expired after 6 hours, one recording said cheerfully. "Let's try a higher dose on the next batch." The effect was immediate. On the Council homeworlds, protests erupted. Not everyone in the Council species was cruel. Many had believed the propaganda that humans were treated fairly. Now they saw the truth and they were horrified. Vrektar tried to suppress the broadcasts, but Wusung had prepared for that. Every time the Council shut down one transmission, 10 more appeared. The information spread like fire, impossible to contain. "They're trying to destroy our morale," Vrektar told the Council. "These are just images. They prove nothing about our righteousness." But outside the Council chamber, Veloth citizens were not so sure. Their children asked them questions. "Is it true, parent? Did we really do these things?" And many parents could not look their children in the eye and lie. Meanwhile, a woman named Yuna Bay was leading a special fleet toward the Veloth homeworld. She was from Kepler 442, one of the survivors of the experiments. She had watched her husband die in a cage. She had held her daughter's hand while alien doctors used them both as test subjects. Now she commanded 20 ships filled with other survivors, all seeking the same thing. Not revenge exactly, justice. The fleet appeared in orbit of the Veloth homeworld, and specifically targeted one location, the research complex that had designed the experiments used on Kepler 442. It was floating in space above the planet, thinking it was safe, thinking it was untouchable. Yuna's ships disabled its defenses and boarded it. Her soldiers moved through the corridors, not killing unless attacked, but capturing every scientist and researcher they found. They gathered them all in the main laboratory, the same place where they had planned their terrible experiments. Una stood before them. These Veloth scientists who had treated humans like disposable animals. She held up a vial of glowing liquid. "Do you know what this is?" she asked them. "This is the same compound you used on my daughter." She was 6 years old, the same age as some of your children down on that planet below us. The scientists looked terrified. They had never thought they would face consequences for their actions. They were council members protected by law and military might. "I could give this to you," Una continued. "I could let you experience what you did to us. But I'm not like you. I'm going to give you a choice. You can help us develop cures for every disease you created. You can work to undo the damage you've done. Or you can refuse, and I will make sure every person in the galaxy knows exactly who you are and what you've done." Most chose to help. A few refused, clinging to their pride. Una kept her word. She released their names and their crimes to every network in the galaxy. They could never go home. They could never show their faces anywhere without being recognized as monsters. Back in council space, the military was trying to organize a response, but they were discovering something terrifying. Human warfare didn't follow any pattern they understood. Humans didn't challenge them to honorable battles. They struck supply lines, making fleets run out of fuel. They hacked communications, sending false orders that created chaos. They assassinated commanders, not with honor duels, but with long-range weapons from ships that couldn't be detected. A council admiral named Theron gathered the largest fleet in Veloth history, 5,000 warships, and set out to crush humanity once and for all. He declared this would be the decisive battle. The fleet traveled to the human colony of New Sol, expecting to find it defended by a few hundred ships at most. Instead, they found the colony evacuated and empty. No ships, no defenses, just empty cities broadcasting a simple message. "Welcome. We've been expecting you." Theron was confused. Where were the defenders? Where was the human fleet? Then his sensors detected something approaching. But it wasn't ships. It was rocks. Asteroids. Hundreds of them coming at incredible speed. By the time Theron realized what was happening, it was too late. The asteroids weren't natural. They were weapons, hollowed out and filled with engines and explosives, accelerated to incredible velocities and aimed with perfect precision. Kinetic bombardment. The oldest form of warfare, perfected to an art form. The asteroids tore through Theron's fleet like bullets through paper. Shields meant nothing against solid matter moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Armor crumpled like tinfoil. In 20 minutes, the largest fleet in Veloth history was debris. Theron survived, his command ship crippled but intact. Taeyang appeared on his screen looking tired but determined. "Admiral Theron, you've just experienced a human tactic we call throwing rocks," Taeyang said. "We've been doing it since we lived in caves. We've gotten very good at it. Go home. Tell your council that 12 species have already sued for peace. Tell them that every day they resist, more of their people die. Tell them that we don't want to destroy you. We just want you to stop treating us like we're nothing." Theron looked at the wreckage of his fleet. 5,000 ships gone, destroyed by rocks and human ingenuity. He remembered mocking human technology, calling them primitive. "What are you?" he whispered. Taeyang's expression was grim. "We're the species you should have left alone." 3 months into the war, 12 council species had surrendered. Their leaders signed peace treaties with humanity, agreeing to new terms that treated humans as equals. They paid reparations for past crimes. They opened their technology to human scientists. They learned what it meant to negotiate with someone they had once considered beneath them. Only the Veloth refused to surrender. They were the strongest, the oldest, the most proud. Their empire had stood for 10,000 years. They would not bow to humans. Rektar stood before the remaining council members and slammed his hand on the table. "We will not surrender to these animals. We have resources they cannot match. We have planets they cannot take. We will grind them down through sheer numbers until they beg for mercy." But the war was not going the way Rektar expected. Humanity had unveiled a strategy they called proportional response +1. For every human killed, 10 Veloth died. For every colony attacked, a Veloth star system fell. The mathematics were simple and brutal. A scientist named Jiho Nam sat in a laboratory, working on something that would horrify even some humans. He was a xenobiologist who had studied Veloth physiology for years. Now he was designing weapons specifically targeting their biology. "Are you sure about this?" his assistant asked nervously. "This crosses a line." Ji-ho looked tired. "They crossed the line first. They gave our children diseases and watched them die. Now we give them a choice: surrender or experience what they did to us." The pathogen he created was brilliant in its cruelty. It wasn't lethal. It was incapacitating. It caused the exact same symptoms as the plague the Veloth had used on humans, the one the Council had refused to cure. Fever, pain, weakness. Not enough to kill, just enough to suffer. Ji-ho's team released it into 3 major Veloth population centers. Within days, millions of Veloth were sick, their hospitals overwhelmed, their society grinding to a halt. The pathogen spread quickly, designed to be highly contagious but self-limiting. It would run its course in a few weeks, but those weeks would be agony. And then humanity offered the cure, free of charge. All the Veloth had to do was ask. Rektar refused. "We will not beg humans for anything," he declared. But in the streets, Veloth citizens were not so proud. They saw their children suffering from the same plague they had given to human children. The irony was not lost on them. While the Veloth leadership remained stubborn, a woman named Yoonji Hong was executing the most ambitious intelligence operation in history. For decades, humans had been infiltrating council societies. They had learned languages, changed their appearance with surgery and technology, and integrated themselves into alien cultures. Now Yoonji activated them all. 73 worlds simultaneously erupted with coordinated resistance. Humans who had been living as loyal council citizens for years revealed themselves. They sabotaged military factories. They hacked government databases and released information about corruption and war crimes. They organized protests and demonstrations. The council had believed their worlds were secure. They discovered that humans had been walking among them for generations, watching, learning, waiting. The paranoia was devastating. How many more humans were hidden? Could you trust your neighbor? Your coworker? Your friend? But the moment that broke the Veloth spirit came, when humanity unveiled its ultimate weapon. A ship appeared in orbit of the Veloth homeworld, a vessel so massive it blocked out the sun for a full minute as it passed overhead. This was the Retribution, commanded by a young pilot named Hyun-woo Shin. The ship was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons that violated every treaty the Council had ever written. It had railguns that could shoot through a planet. It had missiles that could destroy moons. It had energy weapons that could boil oceans. Hyun-woo sat in the command chair looking down at the Veloth homeworld below. Billions of lives, cities, families, children. He could destroy it all with a single command. But he didn't fire. He just sat there in orbit, visible to everyone below. The message was clear. Humanity could end the Veloth civilization, but chose not to. Yet. Rektar watched the Retribution from the surface and felt something inside him break. All his life he had believed in Veloth superiority. He had believed they were untouchable, unbeatable, destined to rule the galaxy forever. Now a human ship hung over his homeworld like a sword, and he was powerless to stop it. The final blow came not from weapons but from something more subtle. Minho Lee, the young assistant who had started this entire war by revealing the truth, had been working with human hackers. They had been studying the Council's ancient defense network, a system of satellites and automated weapons that had protected Council space for millennia. The system was supposed to be unhackable. It used quantum encryption and AI guardians that prevented any unauthorized access. But Minho had discovered something interesting. He had been playing human puzzle games, the kind of logic problems that humans did for fun, and he realized something. The security was designed by aliens who thought in alien ways. It was perfect against alien hacking. But human minds worked differently. Humans were good at finding patterns that didn't seem like patterns. They were good at lateral thinking, at approaching problems from unexpected angles. They were good at breaking things in ways the designers never imagined. Minho broke the code. It took him 6 months of work, 6 months of trying approaches that seemed ridiculous, but he did it. He gained access to the defense network, the most secure system in the galaxy, by thinking like a human instead of like a rational AI. The Council discovered their defense network had been compromised when it suddenly turned against them. Their own satellites began targeting their own ships. Their own weapons platforms broadcasted human messages. The system that was supposed to protect them became humanity's tool. Rektar finally asked for a meeting. He came to the Persistence alone, expecting to be executed or imprisoned. Instead, Taeyang invited him to dinner. They sat in a simple room eating simple food. Taeyang showed Rektar images of Earth. He showed him videos of human history, of humans fighting each other, surviving ice ages, climbing from caves to the stars. "Do you know why we're so much more dangerous than you expected?" Taeyang asked. "It's because you gave us everything easy. You were born on garden worlds where food was plentiful and dangers were few. You developed slowly, comfortably, following predictable paths." He showed Rektar an image of early humans hunting animals 10 times their size. "We're from a death world. Everything on Earth tried to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, each other. We didn't have claws or venom or armor. We just had our minds and our refusal to give up. We learned to adapt or die. We learned to innovate or starve. We learned to work together because alone we were nothing." Rektar looked at the images. He saw humans living in frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense jungles. He saw them facing down creatures that should have destroyed them. He saw them falling and getting back up again and again. "You asked me once what we would do," Taeyang continued. "You mocked us. You called us apes. You thought we were weak because we didn't have your technology or your ancient knowledge. But you forgot something important. We survived by turning our weaknesses into strengths. You gave us chains and expected us to stay bound. You never considered that we might use those chains as weapons." Taeyang leaned forward, his eyes intense. "We don't want to destroy you, Rektar. We never did. We just wanted you to see us as equals. We wanted you to stop treating us like we were disposable. We wanted basic dignity and respect. That's all this war was about." Rektar sat quietly for a long time. Finally he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you want from us?" "Surrender. Release all human prisoners. Provide the medical technology we asked for 6 months ago, and never ever treat another species the way you treated us. And if we refuse?" Taeyang's expression turned cold. "Then the retribution stops being a symbol and becomes an executioner. We will do what we must to protect our people. Even if it means crossing lines we'd rather not cross." Rektar looked at the human commander and finally understood. Humans were not cruel by nature, but they would become cruel if they had to. They would do terrible things to protect their own, and they would never ever stop fighting. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a signature. Rektar signed the treaty aboard the Persistence, his hand shaking as he wrote his name. Around him stood representatives from all 12 council species, all of them having learned the same hard lesson. Humanity was not what they had believed. The cost had been terrible. 3 billion beings were dead across all species. Entire fleets were destroyed. Economies were shattered. Trust was broken in ways that might never fully heal. The galaxy would bear scars from this war for generations. But from the ashes of the old order, something new was being built. A man named Seojin Park became the architect of the new Galactic Council. He was not a soldier or a scientist. He was a politician who understood something important. Winning a war was easy compared to winning the peace. The real challenge was preventing the same mistakes from happening again. Seojin stood before the first session of the reformed Galactic Assembly and laid out humanity's terms. "We are not here to conquer you," he said clearly. "We are not here to take revenge beyond what justice demands. We are here to build something better than what came before." The new system was different from the old council. There were no tiers, no classifications of superior and inferior species. Every civilization had equal representation. Decisions required consensus, not majority rule. And most importantly, there were protections written into the very foundation of the government. No species could be enslaved. No species could be experimented on. No species could be treated as less than fully sentient. "These rules are written in human blood," Seojin said. "We paid for them with our suffering. We will enforce them with our strength. And if any species believes they can ignore them, they will discover why the galaxy should have left humanity alone." But power was dangerous, and humanity had suddenly become the most powerful force in known space. How could they prevent themselves from becoming the tyrants they had overthrown? A woman named Chae-Wan Lee had been thinking about this question for years. She was a philosopher and ethicist, someone who cared deeply about right and wrong. Now she established something called the Office of Ethical Oversight. Its job was simple: hold humanity accountable. The galaxy was shocked when the first cases came before the office. Humans prosecuting humans for war crimes. Soldiers who had tortured prisoners were arrested. Commanders who had killed surrendered enemies were put on trial. Scientists who had developed weapons that caused unnecessary suffering were stripped of their positions. Chaewon stood before the assembly and explained. We fought this war because the council treated us as less than people. If we now treat others that way, we become the monsters we defeated. Justice must apply to everyone, including ourselves, especially ourselves. A Veloth representative asked the question everyone was thinking. Why? Why would you punish your own people? They were fighting your enemies. Chaewon's answer was simple. Because humans understand something you forgot. Yesterday's enemy can be tomorrow's ally if both sides are willing to grow. We cannot ask you to trust us if we do not hold ourselves to the highest standards. The trials shocked the galaxy. Humans actually meant what they said. They were not perfect. They made mistakes. But they admitted those mistakes and tried to do better. Meanwhile, the technology sharing began. The quantum displacement drives, the advanced AI systems, the medical technology that had started this whole conflict. Humanity shared it all freely with only one condition attached. Every species had to agree to use it responsibly, with oversight and ethics committees. Som and Kang personally traveled to the Veloth homeworld to teach their scientists how the displacement drive worked. Many Veloth were suspicious. Why would humans help them after everything that had happened? Because holding grudges is expensive, Somin explained. We spent 100 years preparing for war. Imagine what we could accomplish if we spent 100 years working together instead. The most surprising partnership developed on the Veloth homeworld itself. Yuna Bay, the woman who had lost everything to Veloth experiments, was working alongside the same scientists who had designed those experiments. Together, they were developing cures for diseases across the galaxy. A journalist asked Yuna how she could work with people who had tortured her family. Her answer became one of the most quoted statements of the new era. Hate is easy, she said. Revenge is easy. What's hard is looking at someone who hurt you and choosing to build something better with them. My daughter died in a cage on Kepler 442. I can't bring her back, but I can make sure no other child, human or alien, ever suffers the same way. That's worth more than revenge. Taeyang Kim retired from military service. He was offered positions as an admiral, a senator, even as the first human to lead the Galactic Assembly. He refused them all. Instead, he spent his final years writing. His book was called The 6 Months That Changed Everything. In it, he documented the war from both human and Veloth perspectives. He interviewed soldiers and civilians, winners and losers. He tried to be fair, to show the costs and consequences on all sides. In the final chapter, he wrote something that became required reading in schools across the galaxy. We won this war, but I am not proud of that. War should never be a source of pride. I am proud that we survived. I am proud that we stood up for ourselves. I am proud that we are trying to be better than those who oppressed us. But the war itself? That was a failure. A failure of communication, of empathy, of imagination. The Council failed to imagine that humans were more than tools. We failed to find a path to justice that didn't require billions of deaths. We must do better. 10 years after the war ended, a young woman named Min-jae-oh stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly. She was from a colony world, born after the war, part of the first generation to grow up in a galaxy where humans were equals. She had been chosen to give a speech commemorating the anniversary of the war's end. Everyone expected her to talk about humanity's victory, about their military might, about how they had proven themselves superior. Instead, she talked about her grandmother. My grandmother was from Kepler 442, Min-jae said softly. She died in a research facility, a test subject for Veloth experiments. I never met her. I only know her through stories and pictures. My mother told me she loved to paint. She created beautiful art, landscapes of Earth that she remembered from her childhood. Min-jae held up a small painting. It showed a sunset over mountains, simple but lovely. This was the last thing she painted before they took her. My mother kept it all these years. Do you know what I see when I look at this painting? I see a person, not a human, not a member of a species, not a tool or a resource. A person, someone who loved and created and dreamed. She looked around the assembly at all the different species represented there. The Council crossed humanity's limit. But what was that limit? It wasn't about technology or territory. It was about being seen as people. Every being in this galaxy wants the same thing. We want our lives to matter. We want to be treated with dignity. We want our children to be safe. The war was catastrophic. Billions died. But from that catastrophe, we learned something precious. We learned that we are all people, Regardless of our shape or origin, we learned that treating anyone as less than a person will eventually lead to consequences. And we learned that the only way forward is together. Minji placed her grandmother's painting on the podium. This stays here in this assembly, a reminder that behind every policy decision, every law, every action we take, there are billions of individuals like my grandmother, people with dreams and art and love. Never forget that. Never forget that we are all people. The assembly was silent for a long moment. Then slowly every representative stood. They did not applaud. They simply stood in respect, in remembrance, in acknowledgement of the truth she had spoken. In the new council chambers, a symbol hung above the assembly floor. 12 species emblems arranged in a circle around Earth's blue marble, all equal in size. Below it, a plaque bore words in every language. We are not superior. We are not inferior. We are people. We are equals. We are one galaxy. Hannah Park stood looking at the symbol, remembering when humanity's emblem had been so small it could barely be seen. She thought about all the years of preparation, all the sacrifices, all the lives lost to reach this point. Someone approached her, a young Veloth student studying engineering. "Excuse me, are you Chief Engineer Park?" the student asked nervously. "I am," Hannah said. "I'm studying human engineering techniques," the student said. "I wanted to ask, how did you hide so much for so long? How did you prepare without the council noticing?" Hannah smiled. "We learned something important. The council thought they knew what to look for. They expected threats to look a certain way. So we made our threats look different. We hid weapons in cargo ships and factories and mines. We trained soldiers while calling them farmers. We built a war machine while pretending to be helpless. But why?" the student asked. "Why prepare for war at all? Why not just accept your place?" Hannah's smile faded. "Because our place was not decided by what we could do, but by what others assumed we could do. Because peaceful acceptance of injustice is not peace, it's surrender. Because every species deserves the right to defend itself and determine its own destiny." She looked back at the symbol. "The galaxy crossed our limit.